Right, we're here on the 10th of January 2026, and I've been lucky enough to be invited to Simon's amazing tropical garden in the bare bones of winter. So I'd like to introduce you to Simon.
Hi there.
All right, and we're going to just go around, ramble, have a little chat about what we can see. It's going to be nothing too formal, no sort of interrogation, and just go from there. So I think the first thing we've got to do is start off with this Tetrapanax in front of us, which we can see wrapping on. Well, lots of people out there would probably not wrap their Tetrapanax, and I don't have to, but we're going to have a conversation on why this has happened in your garden, Simon.
Yeah. So this particular Tetrapanax, and there are quite a few different variants. This one I've found to be not as hardy as some of the others. This one in certain years I have lost a lot of top growth if it's got sort of below -7, -8. The frost can also get inside the bark, start splitting and flaking the bark off. So really I've done this very recently because it was recorded that we were going to get temperatures sort of below 5-6 degrees. Otherwise I wouldn't bother. Most years I don't tend to wrap it. But if it looks like it's going to get like that for any prolonged period, I'll just wrap a little bit of bubble wrap around it. And that will just kind of guarantee I at least save a couple of meters of it if the top dies off. It will usually sprout from below wherever it's been wrapped.
And to be fair, in my opinion, it's worth doing it because you've had that cold in the past.
Yeah.
You've sort of had it reduced in height. And I know from coming to this garden in the peak of summer, it is the start of your garden. The feeling of walking under this such big plant, and it opens the sort of gateway to your garden.
Yeah.
That if that was reduced, it would make a dramatic effect to your garden, in my opinion, straight away, because you've sort of got the height from that, and then next to it we've got this large Trachycarpus and the large Camarops, and it basically creates that gateway. And when I do the summer tour videos, it's where I've started from, because it is the point in which the whole garden opens up. So let's have a walk around and let's see what else we can have a chat about. I'm sure there's a lot of people that will want to know what's going on. So from the tours that everyone's seen, as we walk into this bit, at this point, I'm going to have to try and keep the sun off the camera. We would normally see big insects here, ricinus, all sorts of tender plants like that. So are they, what sort of time of year are you digging them out?
Usually towards the end of October. I'll start and I'll prioritize. So the most tender things, obviously, any of the kind of annuals I want to take up, I'll start with first, and then I'll gradually get down to the things that are slightly more hardy, but I don't want to leave out all year.
Okie dokie. Right, we will have a little look at how some of them are overwintered inside your house a little bit nearer the end. But a few questions I've been asked, especially about this beauty. I'm probably going to have to, no, I haven't got the sun in the camera. This is an Agave Americana. I can see you've built a makeshift shelter over it to try and keep it dry. There is lots, normally there's lots more agaves around the bottom. We can see later on that you're taking them up and lifting them. Is that because they're a little less hardy, because it would mean more shelters?
They're a little less hardy, but the main thing is with the other ones, it's all to do with agaves. It's to do with providing the right amount of drainage and also protecting the crowns from freezing wet. It's the freezing wet and the snow that will kill them. So this one is a good example, a big example. It's a victim of its own success, really. I started off with this canopy down here somewhere, and it was quite effective at keeping snow, rain out of the centre of it. Trouble is now it's got so big that I have to keep extending these. I don't know how many more years it is even going to be effective, but anyway, this will keep a certain amount of wet off it. But the reason it's in place really is to form a structure so that in, say, January time, if we do get a lot of snow or ice, I've got a ground sheet, semi-transparent, or salvage sheet as some people call them. It's a big salvage sheet. I'll throw that over the top, I'll clip it down, and then that'll just ensure that it doesn't get all that freezing wet inside, which is likely to kill
So
it off.
someone could basically buy like a clear tarp, put it over and create a mini tent, realistically.
That's what
for them
really.
short periods of time, just to keep that worst out. Have you had snow yet? Because quite a lot of the UK
we've
has.
just got away with it, but we haven't really had much. We had a dusting the other day.
I had a dusting, and that's about it.
I mean, this is about an afternoon's work to put this up. It's a lot of faff. Most people won't want to do it, but you know, this is a particularly big agave, you know, and it's
but you say it's a lot of faff, but you look at the summer results and no one would question that, and that's the way I look at it. So some people might go, I can't be bothered to over shelter it, but then people might never get agaves to this size in our climate. So if you want these stuff to do well and grow well, you do have to protect them.
I mean, this one is, I guess it's about 20 years old now, and it's probably been outside for about 12 to 15 years.
Yeah. And what sort of, they were obviously in this raised stone bed.
Yep.
What sort of soil mix would you have backfilled that with?
Well, I made a mistake with this to start off with. So I thought drainage, and I put a load of bags of pea shingle in.
Okay.
Pea shingle is not good for drainage because it's round.
Yeah.
And the soil still cakes to it.
Okay.
So if you're going to provide drainage, really what you want is this grit. And the other thing I put in this, when I redid it, just before this one went in, was my neighbour was getting rid of all his old roof tiles. So we broke all those up, and there's, you know, probably about half a ton of roof tiles in the bottom of that, all broken up. So that provides quite a good lot of drainage for it. And I've never really had any problems since, but as you say, the slightly smaller ones that are still about this kind of size, I do lift. It's a bit of a pain, but I can't protect them all from the winter wet, not without putting them under cover somewhere. So you'll see I've put some of those under cover.
Okay, if we just walk around that bed a little bit, trying to keep the sun out of the light, out of the camera, I should say. Is this what, a yucca strata? Or the Lina, blah, blah, blah.
I think that was Rostrata. It was given to me anyway.
Okay.
But
how long has that been in?
About 6-7 years probably. That one. It's about half that size when it went in. They're quite slow growing, but it's getting to a nice size now.
And also in this bed, wrapped up at the back, is a Brahia amata.
Yep,
now,
the blue palm.
You said to me before we started filming, there's a reason you've wrapped it up.
Yeah. It's hardy to about -6 or 7 in my experience. I had one that was about half that size some years ago. I lost it when it got down to about -6, -7, unprotected. This one, it's a nice size now. I don't want to lose it. If it looks like it's going to get below -5, I'll start to wrap it. And with a lot of the things in this garden, I start to add layers on as the weather gets worse, basically. So I won't start full on with it completely wrapped up, but if I think that that's what it needs, I'll start adding layers.
And I would also say, from the conversation we've had as we've gone round, the amount you wrap has been done because of your own personal experience in your garden.
Yeah.
What you've lost in the past, what's worked, what's not worked.
Yeah.
Because some people might not need as much protection as what you do. Some people, might use more.
Yeah.
It's the time and the effort you want to put in to keep the height of the plants that you've got.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, as we were discussing earlier, I mean, what time is it now? It's only about 11:30 in this garden. It looks very protected. In some ways it is. It's got a nice wall. It's got some bamboos that provide a little bit of a microclimate. But this time of year, the sun is very low. The walls throw down a lot of shade. We're lucky if any of these plants get any sun above about 1 metre to start thawing them out. So if we have a cold snap like we've had recently, consistent temperatures below 0, that's going to start doing some damage if I leave these things unprotected.
Yeah.
It's different situation in everybody's garden. There's no right or wrong with this. This is just based on my experience over the last 25, 30 years. I have lost things. Don't particularly want to lose them again, particularly as they get big. People will say, well, that looks like overkill. It is overkill until you experience one of those winters like 29, 2010. You start losing all your tree ferns, your stands of bananas, your palms. You know, it's happened to me. it can happen again, and that's when people get caught out. Really.
I get a stark reminder from the nursery near mine called Swine Meadows.
Yeah.
And you see, you've got this gravel path here.
Yeah.
Through their woodlands, they've got lined either side of that path dead tree fern trunks.
Yeah.
All the way through, because in that cold winter of like 2010, they lost nearly every tree fern.
Yeah.
And even when I go to visit that now, that reminds me that cold winters can happen.
Yeah.
People will say with climate change and everything like that, the winters are getting warmer, but there's always colds that can happen. Yeah. It's as simple as that, and it's how much you want to prepare for that and protect.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I only lost 2 of my tree ferns that year, so I've been doing the same method for years now. We can show you that in a bit, you know, and people can take on board from that what they want, really, you know.
Cool. Right, at this point of your garden, you have 2 paths, which I absolutely love, and I've mentioned it in previous videos.
Right.
I love the idea in gardens that you get a sense of journey, a bit of adventure. You can go this way, that way.
Yep.
It makes the garden much more interesting. At this point, we can't see what's past them shrubs and plants.
No.
But what you have got is a path that takes a nice woodland walk round to the right, which is a bit of a different experience in summer, in my opinion, to this walk, which is full of all them big colourful tenders.
Yeah.
But looking at it in winter, when it's right back to its bare bones, we can see obviously the bamboos where you've removed the lower leaves, very sort of structural looking.
Yeah.
And then, well, I'm going to have to mention the tree behind it, because even in summer, the bark on that, what is that tree? Because that looks almost sculptural.
Yeah, that tree is Acer Gricium. It's a fantastic tree, fairly small, reasonably slow growing, but well worth putting in. One of the trees that is similar to that, which I tried to grow, and a lot of people into exotics try and grow, sometimes with more success than me, admittedly, was Arbutus unido, which has a similar strawberry bark to it.
Yeah, so I have that in a pot, but I haven't got it planted.
Yeah, I found with mine it never did particularly well. It could have been the soil quality or type, I'm not too sure, but anyway, in the end I decided to go for that instead, because it had a similar nice peeling bark effect, and it's a beautiful tree, it really is.
So while we're mentioning that, what would you say your soil type is? For instance, clay, sandy?
It does tend to vary a little bit. On that side it's more clayey, I would say. But right from the beginning I started digging in huge quantities of like horse manure and compost and various things, so it would be difficult for me to say exactly what the soil quality is like, but it tends to be fairly loose, fairly humus rich now, because over the years, as well with planting out and digging up, there's always that transference of perlite, grit.
Yeah, it's
going on all the while, kind of thing. So this bed in particular, you can see there's a huge sort of bomb crater there. That's where the big Enset ventricosum normally lives,
which we will look at how you protect that inside later on.
Yeah, it gets dug up every year. Yeah. And
so,
then around that I'll have various tropicals and you know, brugmansias and things like that.
See, I think that's quite important, the add-in of perlite or grit or something like that. So I have this thing that if I plant some of my tenders, let's say it's cannas or something like that, if I pot them up, I will pot them up with a good mix of perlite in it, because I know around the rhizome, or if it's colacasia around the corms, that's quite free draining. Now when I plant it, I know I could dig the hole deeper and put more manure in and give it all the nutrients it wants. But if it's like cannas, for instance, which for a lot of us, some people, we can keep them in our gardens and they can overwinter. Some have to be lifted, but some we can keep them. But I think keeping that free draining, having that perlite in the mix, if there's plenty of manure or compost or whatever, these big hungry plants will find their way. They'll find their way. But I do think that free draining element is really good around the base, just under the sort of top sort of 3 or 4 inches, especially where they're probably most susceptible to get the rot in.
Yeah, definitely.
So talking about that, so do you mulch every year? How do you feed? Is it chicken pellets? Is it manure? Liquid feed?
A combination of everything, really. So the borders that I don't do a lot of replanting, I'll chuck a bit of pelleted chicken manure, something like that on. I make a lot of my own compost as well. So some of that will go in, but it's usually the big hungry tropicals in the centre bed that I'll put the most on, I guess. And I'll usually put a barrel full or so of compost in there each year, dig it all in, and get it all prepped before everything goes in.
And so from in that bed, one of the things that really stands out for me as well is the purple ricinus, probably New Zealand purple, I would say, maybe.
Yeah, it is.
When would you start that for seed? I would say about April time, so it doesn't get too leggy. But I'd like your opinion because you have such good examples of it.
I mean, April, yeah, it's any time between the start of March and the start of April, really. I mean, a lot of stuff I'll start at the beginning of March, but you're right, you run the risk of it getting too leggy.
I think that would depend on what facilities you got. If you've got a greenhouse, if you're doing it on your windowsill where it's a lack of light, they're not going to do very well. If you can give them, if you've got a greenhouse where you can give them plenty of light and warmth, and maybe even be able to bring them out to hard them off slowly, depending on the weather.
The ricin usually at the beginning of March, but then something like the climbers that I grow, the Ipomoea lobata, I don't start.
So the Spanish flag.
The Spanish flag. I don't start that till April because it can. Once it goes leggy very quickly.
So I was looking at seed for that yesterday.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to grow it last year because of your garden and how good it looked. I want to grow it at one of my structures. So that's good to know because I'll definitely be starting that off.
Yeah, April. And the best thing I've found with that is to keep as tall a cloche on it for as long as possible and then just gradually sort of get it used to being out in the open, really, because they like moisture when they're first growing. And I tend to put as mine grow and they outgrow the height of the propagator, because your propagator lid's normally only that high, I'll then put like a lemonade bottle over the top with the top off, so it's still keeping a bit of moisture in there, but letting some of the air in. I gradually acclimatise them, because the only difficulty with the lobata, you'll get them nice in the propagator, you'll take them out and the shock starts to, you know, kill them off, basically. So you have to be a little bit careful about acclimatising them. But other than that, they're quite easy, really.
Okay, good to know. Just to the side here, we've got a couple of evergreen backbone structure. Pseudopanax laetus may have had its name changed to Neopanax. You never know with these things. Which euphorbia?
I think it's Pasteurii, but it's been a long while since I planted it. So
I'm going to say the same. Mine's Euphorbia Pasteurii, I think. It's definitely not the John Phillips one, because I planted it before that sort of was a bigger hit. But so I want to ask about the Pseudopanax laetus, because that's now probably, I don't know if the camera shows it, but what we're saying, 8 foot tall, 9 foot tall? 8 foot?
Yeah, it's at least that, I'd say.
I'm probably going to need to change the space for mine, if we're being honest. Probably haven't give it enough room without pruning it.
That's been pruned. It usually takes pruning reasonably well.
So this winter, so far at this point where we're at in January, what has been your lowest temperature?
I'd say about -7.
-7 Celsius.
And that was a couple of nights back.
Okay, and that looks untouched. Obviously hardiness does, you know, it's relevant on length of time, length of cold, whether you get sort of winter sun, so many different things. But that's good for me to know. I've been a good few years now, luckily enough, without getting lower than -5 Celsius. I'm not saying that will last forever, but this to me, it almost looks like a fat leafed Schefflera, that kind of thing, almost.
No, it's a lovely plant. I mean, it really is.
Now I can actually see all these, which looks like you've got through past the frosts. So do you get seed off this? Have you ever had seed?
I've never tried to grow seed off it. I have tried without success to take root cuttings, but I found it quite difficult. Other people have had success with it, but I don't know. I'm probably not doing it right, but I have tried.
I found not with this, and I haven't tried it, but I found with some just plain grit sharp sands quite good. If you can put it on a heat bench for some of these sort of, like I've had Brassioopsis, just in pure sand on a heat bench. Through the winter months, and
did I say root cut? I meant stem cuttings. But I've tried taking pieces off and growing them. They've all died fairly quickly. But yes, it is a nice thing. I mean, it was hit a few years ago when we had a really cold snap. I did lose some of it. It died back. But yeah, I just cut those stems off and it regrew all right. So
right, let's take a look round to the lawn area. Okay, so this is where your garden opens out. Now, this vision surprised me when I walked around because I'm so used to seeing it in the summer with a huge gunnera in this area. I think insect bananas and stuff there, and that's almost enclosed your back koi pond.
yeah.
So it's quite surprising to see it so open. Now, I can see some things protected, so we are going to ask about that because people are going to have an opinion. We will talk about the tree ferns in a minute. Can I ask what's under that fleece bag to the right?
Yeah, so under there is a stand of musabaju. This is a slightly smaller one. There's sort of 3 or 4 stems in this one. And that's basically wrapped with like a sort of chicken wire
straw
tunnel and straw. And it's sort of supported by a couple of canes that it's all tied to. And then there's just some protection over the top to stop too much wet getting in, bit of plastic. There's a similar thing with the one you can see behind you. Obviously this to some people will seem like overkill, but I've had some very big stands of musabaju just killed, even with that level of protection. In the winter of, I think it was 2010, we had a particularly bad winter. We had temperatures this time of day at minus 14, 15 in this garden, and it had got lower than that. And despite me crating up the large stand of bananas with straw, pallets, everything, they were still dead in the spring. So, you know, you can always be caught out.
The thing is as well, what I would say about your garden is, it's for summer, it's a big impact garden.
Yeah.
It gets that impact because the plants just grow to enormous sizes. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know, they're huge insects.
Yeah.
The musabajus, the Tetrapanax, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So for you to get these set back right to the ground because you didn't bother overprotect them, would have a massive effect on your garden, the whole feel.
They're going to take months to recover.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
And whether some people like me, I haven't protected mine this year and I've been fine. Some of mine have been newly transplanted and I'm not that precious about it, if I'm being honest. But if you want that big summer effect and you don't mind protecting them, put the effort in. You know, definitely. If you don't want to protect them and you're happy for them to come back from the ground, that's fine as well.
Yeah.
I always say the garden's an individual thing. Do it your way.
Yeah.
You know, my videos, seeing these gardens gives different opinions. You know, how people want to take it will always be sort of up to them.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's also a couple of other things that are protected in situ here. So there's a ginger there. It is Gardneranum, is it pronounced?
So there's a lot of gingers in here in the summer.
There's a lot of gingers, yeah. There's a small clump of the Gardneranum there. There's a load of Densiflorum sarung there. And
that's the orange flowering one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. They're all hardy. But I just like to give them a bit of extra protection. So under here, they've got a mulch of compost. You can see the tops just dropping away there. And then I put just a thin layer of straw over the top. That will just guarantee that they'll come back every year. Yeah. And they do. I've left them out before and forgot about the odd clump. What will happen is, because the tubers sit close to the surface, a bit like an iris, if they get continually frosted, that will turn them to mush.
Yeah.
They'll usually sprout from somewhere below near the root if there's enough of it left. But you know, you lose that tuber if you take that risk, really. So a bit of mulch is a good idea.
So in summer, is this quite a sunny spot? Because gingers do like that heat to kick them into growth, don't they, early on?
Most of them do, but they're not all keen on full sun. So I've found Tara and Gardneranum, Hedychium Tara and Gardneranum really like full sun. They like to be baked. Those ones, the Densiflorums and the sarung, I find that they're better off in a bit of semi-shade, really.
While we're talking about that, so we're saying that, like, a lot of your gingers are very orangey.
Yeah.
Do you have like colour preferences?
No. No, not particularly.
Yeah, see, I'm very much with mine. I like certain colours, maybe burgundies, maybe some purples and stuff like that. But I think real tropical gardens, where it's really going for that, they've got to be colourful. You've got to give it lots of hit. Whereas a jungle garden, you've got to mute it down a little bit, mainly greens, add a little bit of colour. But yeah, I just wanted to sort of ask about that, whether you had particular colour palette, colours that you prefer or whatever.
Not necessarily, but sometimes I'll consciously play off a certain colour next to other plants.
Yes,
so,
for contrast and everything. Absolutely fine. Yeah, and like for instance, a good example of that is in your front bed. If you've got the Ricinaceus New Zealand purple, it just picks up on maybe the mid ribs or the Insect Morellii. They go so well because that colour sort of match. Just in case anyone asks, I don't have to answer it. That's a Euphorbia minus Merlot. Pretty darn hardy. No worries about that.
And again, it's a nice contrast with this next to it, which is the colacasia I can never pronounce, which you're going to help me with there.
So I think the correct pronunciation is Gauligonensis. And the reason it is because it comes from the Gauligong Mountains in China.
Right.
Which is like the Yunnan province. So it's not about trying to find the Latin way of saying it or the Greek way or scientific way. I'm not Chinese, so I can't be dead sure, but I would say it's the closest way to say it. I've heard it called the big G, everything, because it looks terrible when you spell it, and I will put it on the screen. But so that's a hardy colocation.
Yeah, but it's same sort of protection, really. Bit of compost on the top of it, bit of straw or bracken, whatever you want to throw over it, and it's just a little bit of a guarantee, really.
Yeah, just a bit of mulch goes a long way.
Yeah, it doesn't take long.
So we will move round. We can see your tree ferns. Now, there's loads of different ways of doing tree ferns. People will just use fleece. People will wrap them. We're going to see your method of doing it, which has obviously worked for you for many years.
There's no real right or wrong, as I say. But what I've done over the years is I make a tube out of this plastic meshing. And then I start stuffing straw down and put a load on the crown. And most winters, that'll see it through fine. I mean, this one's got a bit frost damaged. What I have done in the past, if it looks like it's going to get quite bad, I'll break these down, right down like that.
There's a lot of people like grimacing at what you just did there. Like,
well, but you know, these fronds are never going to look good anyway.
No, I totally agree.
I'll break these down, tie them around the trunk, and we're talking if it's looking like getting down to -7, 8, 9, something like that. It will probably still be all right, but I'll break them down, tie them to the trunk, and then over the top, I'll stick one of these. These are really useful just to stick over the top of a tree fern.
And they go flat as well, don't they? So easy to store.
And it will just get it through that real dodgy week or so of cold weather, you know.
So I'm sort of similar. When it's mild, I just put fleece in the top. If it gets colder, I then wrap that top foot or so of trunk with different things. I've used different sort of insulations and stuff. But I remember one winter it being really, really cold. And I completely wrapped it in loft insulation. Then put like a roofer's membrane around it, and then put a builder's ton bag over the top. And that's the thing. If the weather's going to get really cold, you might have to go further.
Exactly. I mean, do you want to lose a £200-300 tree fern because you haven't spent half an hour wrapping it up? You know?
That's right. You know, it doesn't mean you have to wrap it like that all year.
No.
But keep an eye on the temperatures, and if it does get it, if you're in a milder climate, you're fine.
I mean, I won't even straw mine up till December usually. Unless it comes particularly early. But I'll just put the straw around. That's normally enough most years. You can see some I've put some fleece around, mainly because those ones haven't been doing so well the last couple of years. And there was...
Sorry. Few people are going to be looking at them like that and going, they're not doing well. They look pretty good. I know what you're saying.
But the ones with the smaller fronds, that big tall one there had fronds as big as the biggest one. And then a couple of years ago, there was something weird about the winter. We had a cold snap. It must have done something to the trunk because the trunk then started to ooze some sort of...
it's like a little orange, funny like goo, isn't it?
Yeah. And it really, whatever had happened to it, took it back. So this year, I'm not taking any chances with those ones. It looked like we were going to get quite an extended cold snap. So I've just put a bit of fleece around the trunk as well. I mean, these fleece bags that I got the the other months, they're really good actually. I think they come from somewhere like Aldi, and I wish I'd bought more of them because they're really thick and they zip up.
I've seen a couple of other people show them recently, and I'm definitely going to invest in some pure. And like if you get like fleece bags like that with a zip on, the speed of doing these jobs, you know, just to add that extra little protection.
Well, they open right out and you can just zip them up, you know, and it's a good bit of extra protection. So
I know another thing, after that real cold winter that we went through back in 2010, lots of people lost tree ferns. And there was a big talk back then that if it got cold again, and everyone was looking at different methods, and one that they come up with, which I thought was quite a good idea, was sort of these more like waterproof, like almost army type sleeping bags. And they sort of said because they're quite thick sleeping bags, they're waterproof. Again, like a big sock over the top. You know, sometimes you can, for a few nights, wrap blankets around them. Anything, you know, but if you just ignore it on the coldest nights, and you do, I'm not going to say you get it colder than me, but in the last few years you have been getting it colder than me. So I go with it. I constantly watch the weather from week to week through winter. And then I will assess it. Some people ain't got that time, so they're going to want to wrap up right at the beginning.
You can do. You just have to be careful of whatever material you do decide to wrap it in. If it's not particularly breathable, don't leave it on for too long. You know, a week, 2 maybe, but I wouldn't go much.
And I would also say on that, if they're newly brought tree ferns, they're not going to have the root mass under the ground as well. So they've got to watch they don't get too dry through the winter. You know, all yours have been in many, many years. That's going to be a huge amount of roots there. They're going to be taking the water from the ground. But a newly brought one might just be a trunk. And they've got to make sure that they're not overwrapping it and making that just go almost dust dry.
I mean, I think a lot of people make the mistake of buying a tree fern, don't particularly protect it very well in the first couple of years when it's still trying to get established, and then because they get affected or lose them in the winter, they just say, well, they're not very hardy, they're not right for me, and write it off. It's probably because you didn't protect it enough in the first couple of seasons.
What about watering in the summer months?
Watering what, the tree ferns?
So
I've got a couple of pop-up sprinklers at the back. So those tree ferns I can't access very easily without stepping all over my waterfall. So what I do, there's a little point here which I plug into. That leads to a hose where there's a couple of pop-up sprinklers, and they'll water those ones. And then the ones nearer, I'll do with like one of those watering wands, so I can get right in the top. And I'll make sure I wet the trunks as well as much as possible.
And would you consider watering during the winter months?
Not particularly, no, unless you have a dry winter.
So I don't. Going back to the thing though, if they're newly established and it's a long dry thingy, you might have to think about it. I think it's how mature and how long the plant's been in and lots of other stuff. But that little sprinkler system around there is actually giving me a good little idea. I'm glad you said that. Because round the back of my rear pond, I'm not going to be able to get around that easily at all. So I'm going to have to assess that in some sort of situation.
They're quite good, those ones. They're like a little stick and they pop up higher under pressure. So once you set that going, that will raise up about another couple of foot, and then that will get that spray up above the canopy. And it will start giving them a nice misting, you know. But water in the summer months as much as you can with tree ferns is essential, really, as much as you can afford to do.
Do you feed them, or does it get it from the roots now they're well established?
I do feed them. So from sort of March onwards, once I start thinking about unwrapping them and that, I'll give them some liquid feed. Seaweed, tomato feed, it doesn't really matter. And I'll pour some of that into the crown on a weekly or bi-weekly basis up until sort of May time. So I really it gives them a bit of a boost when they're starting to push up the new fronds, you know.
Totally agree. Okay, so we'll talk about the pond in a minute, but we're just going to mention the structure behind you, which is your gazebo. You've got it wrapped up. Purpose being?
Just the cold snap recently. Normally I wouldn't even do this. But what we've got in here is a few of the smaller agaves. They'd probably be fine. But, you know, if we had a lot of snow and there was a lot of wind, it could have blown snow in here quite easily. So I've got a curtain sides on 3 of the sides anyway, so I just rolled those down, and then the bits that are open, I put a bit of bubble wrap up, and it's just to seal it up. It'll keep a few degrees of frost off, and it will keep any snow out of here. So.
I agree. I've got a gazebo down the bottom of my garden, and I think it was a couple of winters ago, I wrapped clear tarpaulin around all the sides, just so I could bring some plants in. Doesn't keep it much warmer, but it's keeping that wet, that ice, that snow from the plant, and that can be all the difference. Okay, so this pond, I'm going to try and zoom out a little bit. How deep?
It's 4 foot, pretty much. Yeah, 4 foot.
And how long's this pond been here?
Really, the shape and origins of the pond started in the first few years. However, about 10 years ago, I redid it, dug it out deeper, put in a waterfall and all the rocks you can see now. So,
I just want to add, you've done everything in this garden pretty much yourself, haven't you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You've not had landscapers in or anything like this.
No.
It's evolved over, what we're saying, 25 years, did you say?
Yeah.
And what got you into it? What made you go tropical all them years ago, which would have been well before the norm, to be fair?
I bought a book in a bookstore. I think it was called Subtropical Gardening in a Cool Climate, if I remember rightly, by Miles Chalice, who was one of the first people to start, really going for tropical plants in this country.
And when
looking at it now, it's quite a basic book with only a few pictures and a few little diagrams and plans of how you could make a tropical garden, make a path, even in a small space, seemed like it was taking you on a little bit of a journey, and that sort of inspired me. So I started doing a bit of tropical gardening in my old house, but that was a very straightforward terrace strip with no walls, nothing like that. So I was always after a garden eventually that would offer more protection and a better climate, really.
And when you started, what was that like? Trachycarpus fortunii, just the tough stuff, or did you go for some tenders right from the beginning?
Well, that tree fern in the corner, the biggest and oldest one of mine, I've had for well over 30 years now.
Okay, so how big was that? Like a foot tall?
It's about a 3 foot trunk.
Yeah.
So it's about a 6 foot trunk now. So they don't grow particularly quickly.
No, I think I did a video on mine which is called like 10 years of tree ferns or something, and you could see the point in which I brought it, and in that 10 years I'd gained about a foot of trunk. And much more, I must say, my 2 at the back, which were in shade and in a really nice protected place, had grown better than the ones with more sun.
So I started off with a few. The tree fern, a few palms. I think I bought my first Tetrapanax way back in the late 90s. You couldn't barely get them anywhere then. And it was just the Papafera one. Very common.
What they call the standard form, the slightly fatter leaves, which is my biggest plant in my back garden.
Oh, right.
It's a real big plant.
So that's sort of what I started with, just buying a few interesting things that look tropical. And back then, really, you just had to travel to garden centres up and down the country, and mainly in Cornwall that might have a few more tropical plants, really.
So just clarify, how long have you had that tree fern at the back?
It must be at least 30 years, because we've been here 25. So.
And for me, that says why you protect the way you do. Because over them 30 years, we've had some pretty harsh winters. And
definitely.
You've learnt from that, and now you don't take the risks. And you protect them, and that's why you've got a tree fern in the back corner that's 30 years old. Okay, we've got a filter on this, obviously.
There's a filter on that. There's a Nexus filter on that, which is like a big biological filter, which works pretty well, but I'm going to upgrade it soon to a different system.
Okay, you did say for this year you have added a little bit of heat to it, haven't you?
So the pipe you can see that's sticking in that end, it's not actually running at the moment, but because I don't actually want the pond to completely freeze over, if it's really cold and it starts to freeze over, I've got a pump which basically pumps through a loop into a heater and back into the pond. So it will pump the pond water out. It'll only heat it by a few degrees, but it will be enough to stop it freezing over. But I don't leave it on for long because it's very expensive to run. So.
Okay, before we go through to the back bit, which no one would have ever seen and doesn't even know exists, I just want to mention these two plants that are protected here. And I also want to mention you've wrapped up some of your Tetrapanax, and we said about different varieties have different hardiness. You haven't wrapped this one up.
No.
Is that because that's tougher for you?
It's tougher.
Or you're a little less precious?
No,
it's just a tougher one.
Yeah.
So that goes to show, you know, you have to sort of learn these things over the years, which varieties you've got, what works in your garden. So what have we got under these two?
So these are Schefflerers under here. So under this one is Taiwania.
Taiwaniana. So a lot of people consider this quite a hardy Schefflera.
Yeah, I only planted it this year though.
Yeah. So I sort of agree with that. I planted a Brassiopsis this year and the Schefflera Nova, and I've protected both of mine for the same reason. One, that will help keep the snow off it, stops them bending over, putting thing on it, and it just gives it that extra little bit.
And there's some sticks just supporting the
but cross, I really do want to show how what you've done under the other one. There goes the microphone. You don't get this on garden as well, do you?
What did you
You've got your gloves on. Do you want me to click it on?
Is it just like that?
It's right. Yeah.
Is that going to work like that? It was tilted up,
if you put it on that one.
That's it.
Yeah, there you go. It's got both green lights on.
Yeah, it does,
So let's just talk into there. See, we're raw. We're raw, Simon.
Yeah, I know.
Got the big production that everyone else has got.
Bloody raw at the moment when it's cold.
Yeah, I just want to point out it's about 2 or 3 degrees today. We can't feel our fingers. We can't feel our hands. But we're committed now. We have got some more bad weather due, I think, haven't we?
Yeah.
Not nothing too cold.
It's getting better next week, I think. But
yeah, but it's still wet. So under here, this is quite interesting, I think.
This is a Schefflera macrophylla. So not as hardy as that one by any means. I have grown one in the garden before successfully for 3 or 4 years like this. But yeah, it's a bit hit and miss. So this one I started just with some straw, and that's all it had on it. But then recently, because of the cold weather, I've just wrapped this piece of wadding around the growing point. You can see there, it still looks pretty intact. And then I put this fleece bag over it as well. So that should hopefully see.
And what we're talking about duration for how long that would be on?
This, well, if we start to get a week of good weather, which we're predicted to have next week,
yeah, a bit
I'll
warmer.
take them off and I'll get some air to it.
Yeah. So these ones, unlike the tree ferns, you're protecting temporary for the times during the cold spells, not all year round.
No. I mean, this I'd probably take off soon as well. I don't like leaving that on for too long because you want some moisture and wet to get to the trunk, really. So, yeah.
Just one thing I would like to add before we go through to the back is if you've got Scheffleras like this macrophylla and you've got quite a waterlogged garden, heavy clay, just be aware they don't like to be really wet around the roots during winter, so you might have to think about they might be better in pots for you.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in the ground. They do like Scheffleras, Brassiopsis, stuff like that, do like quite free draining soil.
Yeah.
And these are quite protected around here. You've got the big laurel hedge behind it.
Yeah.
And yeah, hopefully it'll be interesting to see, because if that works for you, I've got to think about, I don't like to put too much winter protection in, but down the bottom of my garden, because basically the back of my house is all bifold, so I see it. It's almost like a vista all year round.
Yeah.
So I don't like to see like too much protection and ruin, because I try to make a garden that looks good all year round. But nearer the back, where it's more hid, a bit like yours, I would actually like to plant my macrophylla. And you're giving me a little bit more confidence actually now that I might even try it.
The problem with the macrophylla is there's so few of them available.
Yeah,
you know,
and they are pricey.
I'd like to get hold of another one, and I can't at the moment.
They are pricey.
So it's a bit of a risk. If you want to plant it out, it's perhaps best to try and have a second one.
Yeah. But,
you know.
We were saying that before we were on camera. Some of these plants, it's worth having a backup if you can.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Because as much as we try, every now and again, we don't know what these winters are going to bring.
No.
Right, we're going to go round to the back, which is pretty much what I would say the engine room of your garden. Right, we'll go through this hedge and round here, I'm gonna have to try and watch the sunlight through the camera. But we've got like a little mini polytunnel. This is where just your compost bins are. This is where you can do all your potting up, everything like that.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people sort of neglect, because we're all trying to put a beautiful garden in.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need a little area.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, someone did ask me in one of the questions, you know, how much waste you get. Now, there's different ways of doing it with all your insects that you have to cut back, all your gingers, your canners, and everything like that. You know, that's going to be a lot of stuff to get rid of once the cold comes. So having your own compost bins really helps. There will people that sort of will use it to mulch around the back of some of their plants and stuff like that and let it rot down. But if you can have a little space, obviously you give a good proportion of your garden up at the back here to get all your shed hid away and these extra greenhouse and polytunnel. But like I say, I think this is like the backbone, the engine of the garden, which allows that to happen because you've got this space.
Yeah, I mean, I try and recycle as much as I can, but obviously there's so much stuff at the end of the season that I usually do about a tip run a week.
Yeah,
you know, and then I'll compost as much as I can until they're full, sort of thing.
I do miss the big insects, and that I've got one which I might plant out again next year. So I used to grow about 5 or 6, but I don't miss that. I don't miss having to lift them, cut them all back, and everything like that. But your display shows why it's worth it.
Well, yeah, it's a lot, but I don't know how many years I'll carry it on, but
yeah, because you was saying they're getting quite heavy.
Yeah, and I'm getting older.
So. Ain't we all?
So yeah, in here are basically the things that I need to keep frost free, but don't need a particularly high temperature. I've got a lot of less hardy gingers, which pretty much stay in pots all year, and I'll just plant them around as fillers.
Yeah.
What does like the polytunnel and the humidity, because this is quite wet, it's quite often just dripping with moisture and water. The less hardy tree ferns, got a brownie eye there, a Cooper eye, and I forget that one is. I'm sure I'll be corrected online. I'm trying to remember not a Cyathea. It's a Dixonia sclerosa. I think it's a sclerosa, that one.
Yeah.
Multi-stemmed. They actually like quite a cool and moist environment, so this suits them all right. It's just kept above freezing most times.
And do you pot plunge them or plant them and dig them every year?
So these I pot plunge in.
Yeah.
And if I think they're outgrowing the pot, I might lift them, root trim them a bit, either pot them on or just give them a bit.
So for those that don't know, you basically dig a hole, put the pot into the ground, so stay in their pot, and then you can just mulch over it, so it look with bark or something, so it looks like it's planted, but then allows you to lift it.
Yeah, exactly. These ones are in that little woodland area near the house.
And I think a good thing for that is as well that if people are worried about taking that and leaving a big hole all in the thing, they can grow something else in a pot that's hardier and put it in that space during the winter months.
Yeah,
if that's something that they're...
or just fill it in. It doesn't take.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Doesn't take long.
So we've got the Echiums in here are a bit more tender.
Yeah. These are not the Pignonana ones, so they're not particularly hardy. So yeah, I'm just keeping these frost free. They should start to flower this season, I'm hoping. Probably in a couple of months' time. They actually start to throw the flower up quite early, a lot of them. But
in case anyone asks what this beautiful foliage is, this is a Brassioopsis dumicola.
Yeah.
Which should be pretty hardy as it gets bigger, but obviously it's sort of a newish plant for you and you're sort of bulking it up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just giving it a little bit more of a chance before I plant it out. So.
Right, do we want to have a look in your Evergreen house or anything else you want to mention?
No, we can look in.
Okay, so going around to your other greenhouse.
Yeah, so this one I keep heated to around about 10 degrees is about the lowest it gets. And this is where the more tender stuff goes, really.
Yeah.
So we've got some colacacias, different forms in there. We've also got the begonia luxurians at the back, which I've cut back quite a bit this year. There's a few bananas.
And you plant them out every year. You don't pot plunge them, you plant them, do you?
I plant them out, yeah. You could do either, really, but I plant them. I
will show a picture on the screen of what they look like in the summer, because it is a spectacular display. Probably one of the best I've seen, if I'm being honest. Obviously, we've also got colacasia,
Yeah.
irisine.
Yeah.
I actually thought that would probably be more in your propagators, to be fair, but obviously it's warm enough in here.
Yeah.
Feel a bit guilty. We've got the door wide open. I can hear the heater going
right.
at the other end.
Yeah, that's all right.
Some more agaves, aeonium, lots of different things in there.
Yeah, there's a few millianthus in there as well.
And I can sort of see from the colacaceas, some are still in leaf, some have sort of gone a bit dormant. We're keeping them a little bit drier, aren't we?
Yeah.
Plenty of perlite in the mix to make sure they don't stay it. And then hopefully, you did say that in that back corner, that turns into a bit of a prop bench for you, don't you? So you can give them some heat and get them started off in spring.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what else we can do. Okay, we're both freezing. So we're going to go back down towards the house, down the gravel path, and we'll show the builds, what's inside the house, getting that extra bit of heat and winter protection. Right, so this is joined to your house directly. We'll go through. Glass windows, doors on the front, and then we've got a sunroof above it. And the absolutely massive inset ventricosa. Now, this is the green leaf form.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more temperamental than Inset Morellii and the Montbarliardo ones, which can take a little bit lower degrees.
Yeah.
Now, you've said you keep the Morelliis in your garage.
Yeah. They don't seem to need the light. So the Morelliis, I tend to do a similar thing. I'll put them in a pot. I know a lot of people tend to say, well, cut them all back, hang them upside down, dry them out. If it works for you, great. I've never done that. I've always kept them in a pot, kept them ticking over. The Morelliis go in the garage. I'll make sure they don't dry out completely, maybe check them once or twice over winter. And then I start to sort of bring them into growth in April time. You know, I might start chancing bringing them out, get a bit of sun to them, or I can bring them in here. I
can see this is trying to grow now.
Yes, yeah.
So you must get a real problem in April when it wants to grow.
Well, I have to cut bits off that weekly just to stop it trying to push out the roof light, basically.
I do think, though, when you come into your garden in summer, especially in the peak of summer, it's one of your most standout plants. Your agave is because it's so sculptural and that to the side, but then contrast to that on the opposite side.
Yeah.
You know, lots of people in this country with tropical gardens will grow different insects.
Yeah.
But very few.
Yeah.
Will have the passion, the will, and I will say, understanding of wrath to allow this to happen.
Yeah, no, that's definitely right.
But
sometimes it wears Christmas lights this time of year.
Okay, so we've got a few other things in here. We've got down here, we've got an agave attenuata.
That's right.
Yeah. Mine comes into a heated greenhouse as well. Try to keep it at least to 5 degrees if possible. A ginormous Monstera Swiss cheese plant.
Yeah.
That goes out for the summer months.
Yep, started life as my daughter's student plant. Soon discovered, despite what I told her would happen, that it was a bit big.
They do get very
so
big.
So I inherited it.
So when would that go out? May time?
So yeah, that will go out in about May.
Yeah.
But it's nice if you've got that sort of space you need to fill and you want to create something tropical looking.
Yeah,
definitely. It's a good plant to do that with.
I put a couple of mine out, but mine are like a quarter of the size of yours.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to try to get them bigger because I'm imagining, well, I know what that looks like outside and it's pretty impressive. Another thing I want to mention is in your summer bedding, you use lots of coleus.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation about this earlier.
Yeah.
And you basically, and I agree with you, said a lot of the time it's better to grow them from cuttings than it is to try and save the plant from the year before, which sort of can sometimes go downhill a bit, can't they?
Yeah, they can. I mean, if you can, the best time really, I think, is to start taking some cuttings in, say, July time. So they've got a few months to get to a reasonable size. If you leave them too late, you can be taking cuttings that are about to flower.
Yeah.
And you don't want that. So if you take some of the younger pieces of growth in sort of July time, start growing them on as cuttings, usually by the end of July, August, September time, you got something that kind of size. and that's what you want, really. I mean, I've tried digging up more mature plants with limited success. Sometimes they come through the winter all right. Sometimes, for whatever reason, they just start to rot off. But the younger plants seem to overwinter more successfully if you can keep the white fly off and that kind of thing. It's just keeping the moisture levels right with the coleus. You know, I tend to only water when I see them starting to just dry out that little bit. And water from the base if you can.
Yeah, good point. You mentioned whitefly. Any other pests?
No, it's mainly whitefly with the coleus. Sometimes you get a bit of green fly as well.
What about in the garden?
No, once they're out there and happy.
What about other plants? Aphids, a little bit. I think
I get
probably if you have dahlias and stuff.
All types of aphids I get. It's usually only a problem at the beginning of the season. Once they've been out there, the air's got to them, they're happy. You know, most plants only seem to succumb to a lot of aphids, a lot of whitefly, that kind of thing, when they're starting to suffer or they're not happy.
Yeah.
And then they really start to get infested. It's usually down to a lack of water or something else, but
around this side, we've got some more coleus at a younger age. We've also got...
Yeah, you've got coleus in propagators there. Then we've got the...
Is this one an colacasia, this one?
Colacasia macrochyza, I think, that one.
We only have to grow them. We don't have to know all the names, do we?
No.
Oh, so I can see these bananas are in. So I'm going to ask her they move sub a jus or a different banana.
These are a really beautiful one, actually. And I got these as small plants from B&M, who I found in recent years actually get some quite nice tropicals in. If you're lucky,
they've definitely started to go that way.
This one's called Siam Ruby, and these leaves will go a really deep purple.
Yeah.
Kind of striped green and purple in the summer. They're really nice, and they do seem to overwinter quite well as a house plant. I've had some bananas don't even do particularly well as a house plant, but these ones seem to.
And they do. So this particular variety does really need to come into sort of house temperatures, realistically.
Yeah.
You know, even a heated greenhouse it's going to cost a fortune to try and keep the heat that these things would. But
I've only had these a couple of years, and they're throwing up young ones.
And do they get planted out for the summer, or are they stay in the pot?
Well, I might plant them out next year because they're getting bigger, but they sort of stayed in pots, sort of disguised in borders, if you like, last year.
Yeah, done that a lot myself.
You didn't particularly notice they were in pots, but they were.
Just behind it, papaya.
Yeah, we've got some papaya here. Obviously, there's all sorts of different types. I couldn't tell you exactly what variety these were, but these are just over a year old now, and hopefully, if they carry on overwintering well, they'll be nice big plants next year. Once they get that summer heat, they do
like plenty of water and feed during that sort of bit like brugmansias. They like. Do you still grow brugmansias?
Yeah, all my brugs pretty much are in the garage, all cut back.
Yeah, so you just let them almost go dormant.
Yeah,
I've done that myself in the past. We've got Travesia behind it, which is
really nice plant, very similar to Brassioopsis in leaf shape, I think, Mytis, but really, really nice plant and lovely one to have as a house plant and then put out for the summer.
Going round, I think we've covered most of it. What is this one? Is it Sonchus?
That is
Lobelia?
No.
I'm throwing names out there.
I know. It's another what we were just discussing that I usually cut back. Brugmansia.
Oh, is it?
It's the one that has.
I didn't recognise the leaf shape.
No, it's a very sort of felty, arrow-shaped leaf shape. It's the one that has the red and yellow flowers.
Okay, is that
sanguinea? I think
something like that.
But I haven't managed to get it to flower yet. All it seems to want to do is put up loads of leaf. But I've only had it a couple of years, so
I'm glad you said that because that is one of the ones I would like because of its lovely flower colour. I would have liked to add to my garden.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to struggle to get it to flower, then that might be something to think.
Well, I'll see what happens to it this coming year. But
I think we've pretty much covered everything, Simon.
Yeah.
And if we haven't, I'm not sure what else we can say because we're both freezing.
Yeah.
Toes are really cold. If anyone's got any questions and they want to leave it in the comments, I can ask Simon for any questions I forgot to ask. I didn't want to turn it into some sort of questionnaire thing. I just wanted it to be a chat and a bit of a ramble. Just want to say, Simon, thank you very much.
No, you're welcome.
There's not many people and most people, what I should say is, want to show their gardens at their very best.
Yeah.
Right. And people would have seen your garden at its very best through my channel and maybe think, how do you do it? I think hopefully in this video, we've walked around, we've shown what you do, the level of protection and the effort that you're willing to create this garden. And on them lot and myself, thank you very much. And we'll leave it at that.
Yep, you're welcome.
Cheers. Bye.